Hi there! Welcome to Pallet University. So it's been quite a long time since I've updated this series, but we're starting to wrap up Generation 1, and I just needed some time away from the series. It felt like, I think the first 4 episodes were the only videos to go up on the channel during that interval. It was just feeling a little stale to me, so I wanted to put it on pause for a little bit and come back to it when I was feeling more refreshed, made some other content for you guys to check out. We're back with the end of Generation 1, or at least getting there. We'll save the legendaries and the pseudos for later, but for now we're going to be running through some of the last Pokemon of Gen 1. And this was actually supposed to go up yesterday, but as you may or may not know, if you watched our sort of update / giveaway video right up here, I probably by the time you see this will be at least on a bus to get on a plane to Belize. We're leaving tonight. By the time I'm filming this tomorrow, which is roughly like 3 p.m., I will be in Belize, having the time of my life. So definitely, if you're interested in getting some knickknacks, things like that, some things that I find in Belize that I'm able to bring back, if you're interested in that kind of thing, definitely feel free to check out, like I said, the giveaway video and find out how you can enter to win some stuff that I bring back. But before we get into the countdown, as always, we need to go over our rules of engagement for this series. So number 1, all names are given in Latin or Greek, depending on whichever seems to fit better. Number 2, I don't know either of those languages, so don't hate me if the grammar is a little bit incorrect. For the most part, they make sense. And lastly, wow, I'm totally blanking. It's been so long. Final evolutions. Since we're talking about final evolutions in this series, wow, super professional, I swear. Since we're talking about final evolutions in this series, if, for example, in this episode we talk about Electivire, that is taking Electabuzz's spot in the Pokedex. So everything that we talk about will be final evolutions, and those same names apply to their pre-evolutions as well. Anyway, let's get on with the countdown. So first up today we have Jinx, which to my knowledge is the only Ice Psychic type besides its pre-evolution Smoochum, which I think is a really neat typing. Personally, there should be more of them. But Jinx's scientific name is Succubus gelus, which means icy succubus. A succubus is sort of like a demon woman who seduces men and steals their soul or something to that effect, steals their life force. So that's literally Jinx, but Jinx has an ice element rolled into it. Like I was talking about just a few seconds ago, after Jinx in the Pokedex comes Electabuzz, but since we're talking about final evolutions, let's talk about Electivire. Electivire's scientific name is Tonitris Calidus, which literally means Thunder Punch. It's pretty understandable. It's well known for being one of the OG, at least Electabuzz anyway, being the OG electric type Pokemon besides, Pikachu, and being one of 2 Pokemon that in Generation 1 that can learn Thunder Punch, the other being Hitmonchan. After Electabuzz comes Magmar in the Pokedex, but once again, final evolution, so we're talking about Magmortar, whose scientific name is Ignis Calidus. This means Fire Punch, which sort of goes to its, sort of partnership, somehow relatedness to Electivire. They all got baby evolutions in Generation 2, they got new evolutions in Generation 4, and similar to Electabuzz, Magmar is well known for being one of the OG, very popular Fire-type Pokemon, and once again being one of the first Pokemon to learn Fire Punch in Generation 1. Next we have Pinsir, and I haven't really talked about it, but also the Megas count for this as well, since they're just sort of alternate forms of the actual Pokemon. Next we have Pinsir and Mega Pinsir, whose scientific name is Coleopterus bicortius, which means 2-horned beetle. This one's fairly obvious. It's a beetle Pokemon, one of, I think, 3 or 4 of them in the Pokedex. But this is the one with 2 horns, at least horns in the sense that they're on their head. I guess you could argue a Escavalier sort of has 2 horns, but they're not really like horns, but that's way far away. Escavalier is forever away in the Pokedex. Next up we have Tauros, and I tried to think of something fun, but at the end of the day, Tauros is just kind of a bull. It's basically just a normal bull with a gem kind of thing on its forehead and 3 tails. So to reflect that, I decided to give it the name Bovum regularis, or regular bull. Next we have Gyarados, whose scientific name is Atrox sonomari, or atrocious sea serpent. The atrocious part comes from it being the atrocious Pokemon in the Pokedex, and the sonomari kind of is like a conjunction of words. So the word sea serpent in Latin is Mary sonabit, which is 2 words. So I just kind of switched the sona at the beginning, and then Mary means sea. So sonabit plus Mary, sonamary. After Gyarados comes Lapras, whose scientific name is Sauropterus crustus, which means shelled finned lizard. This kind of comes from the name of the group of marine reptiles from the time of the dinosaurs, which are called Sauropterygians, which means lizard wings, basically. Which is much more accurate than calling like pterosaurs things like Aerodactyl, which we'll talk about later. It's much more accurate calling them lizards than it is to call a pterosaur, or as most people call them pterodactyls, which weren't really lizards. These were much more closely related to actual lizards. These things like Lapras, which are Lapras is based off of a plesiosaur. And then the shell lizard, shelled part comes from it having a shell, which most plesiosaurs, actually I don't believe any plesiosaurs had shells like that. So that's just something that Game Freak was just like, here, let's give you a shell. It'll make you look cooler. I don't know. I love Lapras though. Lapras is such a great design. Anyway, rambling. Moving on. Next up we have Ditto. And as we've been doing with Pokemon that are sort of man-made, or I guess like unnatural, I've just been sort of putting them off until later, so with Ditto we'll do the same. After Ditto comes Eevee, whose scientific name is Polymutatio vulpus, which means many changing fox, which obviously is a reference to the fact that it can evolve 7 different times, 7 different ways. And it's sort of loosely based on a fox. At least Eevee is, the rest may or may not be, but at least Eevee is based off of a fox. After Eevee comes Porygon, so we'll skip right over Porygon 2 to Porygon Z. And similarly to Ditto, because this is a man-made artificial Pokemon, we'll see you later. Now we're getting into my expertise, which is the fossil Pokemon, starting with Omastar. Omastar's scientific name is Crispum spiculum, which means curled spike, which is a reference to its, round, curly shell, in addition to the spikes that it grows upon evolution. Now, if you remember way back to episode 2 of this series, we talked about Oddish, who had a scientific name given by the Pokedex in Fire Red. And I mentioned that there was one other Pokemon who has a scientific name, defined by the games or the anime or something within the Pokemon universe, and that is Kabutops. Kabutops' scientific name is Kabutops maximus, and probably the only Pokemon that's going to have its common name used in its actual scientific name. I don't tend to like doing that. Generally you see that with things that are extinct just because, we don't have like a normal common name for them. And that, that fits with Kabutops. The name means largest Kabuto face, which was given in an episode of the anime called Fossil Fools in the Johto saga. You could also take it as largest helmet face, because Kabuto is Japanese for helmet. So you could also take that, largest helmet face, largest Kabuto face, because its face resembles a Kabuto. Kind of up to interpretation. Rounding out the fossil Pokemon of Generation 1, we have Aerodactyl, whose scientific name is Lamidenta terra, which means blade-toothed wing. This is mostly in reference to the Pokedex several times stating that it has saw-like teeth, as well as it, having wings. Lastly for this episode, we have Snorlax, whose scientific name is very simply Gravis gravis, which literally means heavy, because for Generations 1 and 2, it was the heaviest Pokemon and still remains in the top 20 heaviest Pokemon that we know of. So that's going to wrap up this episode. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to go about doing legends and things like that. Most of them are biotic in some way, but some of them are really like supernatural beings almost. So for some of them, that's mostly once we get into later gens. In Generation 1, they should mostly be pretty easy to do. But I guess we'll cross that bridge next episode when we come to it. So thank you very much for watching. Like I've said several times in this video, check out our giveaway that's going on. All you have to do is comment with what your favorite fossil Pokemon is and you're entered to win. Keep an eye out for some vlogs coming from while I'm in Belize. Those will probably be out in about 2 weeks' time by the time I get back. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and as always, There's a time and place for everything.